Hello everyone, in honor of Halloween Ends, I decided to share with you my updated ranking of the Halloween franchise. Now again, these are going from my least to most personal favorites, so these aren't what I consider to be like the ultimate best for everyone, but these are just my favorites for myself, so if your list differs from mine, feel free to share it down in the comments below. Let me know what your least to most favorite films are from the Halloween franchise. Starting the list at number 13 is Halloween Resurrection. Wow, where do I start with this film? You know, it not only undoes the brilliant conclusion that was Halloween H20, but it also creates a very low budget, just cheap looking venture for the Halloween franchise. We get Laurie Strode in the first 10 minutes. She is unceremoniously killed off. And from that, the film turns into like a Blair Witch Project kind of found footage haunted house sort of venture where this film crew and people go into the Michael Myers house to record. This is where Michael then comes back home to wreak havoc and kill people that are in his house. The look of this is just so cheap. The characters are just horribly written. They're just not the best. The best thing this film has going for it is some of the cheesiness and Busta Rhymes. That's right, his famous line.
Trick or treat, motherfucker.
Between that and the roundhouse kick, you cannot go wrong. The best thing about this film, in my opinion, is the Michael Myers mask. It actually does look like a vast improvement over the H20 mask, and it actually fills his eyes with like a black void that look evil. He's back to being kind of the shape. Very reminiscent of the Halloween 6 mask, but this was the final nail in the coffin for the original Halloween franchise, and it's no wonder they went with numerous reboots after this. After that, at number 12 is Halloween 2, H2. You know, I had a hate relationship with the Rob Zombie films. There was a time where I actually liked this better than the original, but what this has going for it, besides a creepy atmosphere and just Michael Myers, is the gore. It has some messed up kills, but it does make some questionable choices. It does go out there. As a matter of fact, the new Halloween Ends film reminds me a lot of the second Rob Zombie movie as far as creative choices. But unlike Ends, this one just does not respect the legacy of these characters and the lore of the franchise. And because of that, I think it's a tad weaker, even though I enjoyed more moments of it than I did the 2007 remake. And we also get like a Rob Zombie looking, homeless looking Michael with a beard. I mean, that was creepy. Stuff with Laurie was creepy. It's just a very grotesque movie, and it's just not among one of my favorites. After that, at number 11 is Halloween 2007. My brother and sister-in-law once asked me of like, what would you do in a Halloween remake? I replied, I would never remake it. Halloween was a perfect film that really did not need a remake, let alone a sequel. But I like what Rob Zombie does. He adds a dark, tortured backstory here. We get Malcolm McDowell as the new Dr. Loomis, but we get to see more of Dr. Loomis and Michael Myers' relationship, his time in the asylum, from going to a kid to an adult, and he adds that Rob Zombie flair to it. The beginning of it is a great psychological exploration of this character and evil itself, and the second half happens, and I have to say, it's Rob Zombie's twisted version of the John Carpenter original. It does honor the original and kind of is like as an alternate look of like, what if Rob Zombie did John Carpenter's Halloween? And that's what you get. And I did not like this film at the time. I enjoyed Halloween 2 a bit more when it first came out, but rewatching them, this film is not as bad as I once thought. You know, it's like, it's a remake. They don't really need a remake in the age of like horror remakes with this and Nightmare on Elm Street, but I always remember this because at least it not only copied the original, but it did just enough to make it stand on its own as its own unique take and kind of like interpretation of this franchise and this character of Michael Myers. After that, at number 10 is Halloween 5. Again, like many of the weak entries in this franchise, this totally kind of disregards the events of Halloween 4. I mean, you still have Jamie and everything and what happened. Brilliant twisted ending from Halloween 4, but now she's kind of more of a mute. You have some new annoying characters, great characters who get killed off way too early in this film. But as always, you know, Donald Pleasence gives his all with every performance as Dr. Loomis. And I have to say, he's the one consistent thing in this franchise in the original films. Michael's in this. His mask looks horrible. The Myers house, for continuity's sakes, looks completely different. This film is a bit of a slow film that also adds this kind of shoehorned in plotline of the Thorn cult with the Man in Black. Overall, this just felt rushed. It felt cheap. It didn't have the quality that Halloween 4 Return of Michael Myers had, and because of that, it's lower on my list. I enjoy watching it when it's on AMC on Halloween. It's not the worst film ever, but there's been better entries in this franchise. After that, at number 9 is Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. Now, this one is the first that does not have Michael Myers. As a matter of fact, it goes to Carpenter's original idea of it being an anthology series. He never wanted to make another film with Michael Myers. He always envisioned Halloween as an anthology film series. And that's what Season of the Witch does. You know, you have great actors in this. Some of you may recognize the main lead from Lethal Weapon, but yeah, this company, the Shamrock Company, and this creepy like brainwave thing on the TV, just like exploding people's heads and stuff. It's just very bizarre. You know what I mean? It's kind of like a standalone Halloween in the fact that it's like a Twilight Zone or Tales from the Crypt episode. I do like it for what it is. It's completely different. It's kind of hard to rank it with this because it's not Michael Myers, but it is a Halloween film. I like that they did something different to show you that there could be some life without Michael. Was it done to the best possible way it could have been done? Hell no. But they at least attempted to do something different after the conclusion we had in Halloween 2. And it's a shame that this did not do well, or that audiences weren't really preview to it being an anthology series, being disappointed that Michael wasn't in it. Because as glorious as his return was in 4, I would have loved to see what this film franchise would have been if each installment was a different Halloween story for Halloween. It could have been a cool film anthology to watch during the Halloween season. But this Season of the Witch is a very bizarre and different film. And while it's not as good as the best of this franchise, I think it is an underrated film that needs more love and is definitely better than some of the worst of the franchise. After that, at number 8 is Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. I love this film, both the theatrical and producer's cut. The producer's cut is very good with like the Thorn cult. I don't like what happens with Jamie, but you get Tommy Doyle, played by Paul Rudd, Dr. Loomis, Donald Pleasance in his last role. You could tell he was ill during this, but he gave it his all, as always. And he gives one of his best performances as Dr. Loomis, in my opinion. I actually like this film up to the end. It's like, I wish they got the producer's cut and swapped it out with a theatrical ending. Besides the pacing, besides alternate scenes and alternate color timing, I like both versions, you know. This was a cool continuation that tried to like bring a backstory to the supernatural element of Michael Myers in the original film franchise. And 4, 5, and 6 do make the Thorn trilogy in many ways, and it's a solid trilogy. A trilogy that Halloween H20 could have easily continued on in canon if it didn't try to disregard it. Overall, this has some pretty brutal kills. The mask looks amazing. And I like some type of continuation with other characters in the Halloween franchise. You know, you don't have Laurie Strode yet, but you get Tommy Doyle, you get more with Loomis, and more into the backstory of why Michael is the way he is. And I kind of respect him for trying to add that into the film. And who knows what would have happened if we had proper execution, if the production went a bit better. I don't know. I would recommend revisiting Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. You may be surprised. After that, at number 7 is Halloween Ends. Halloween Ends is a very different film than myself and others thought it would be. Was it the epic conclusion of Laurie and Michael that we wanted? In many ways, no. In many ways, yes, it was a satisfying conclusion. It was a heartfelt conclusion. I wonder, kind of like Terminator, did you watch this for the Terminator, or did you watch this story for Sarah Connor? Because for Michael, yeah, he could have and hasn't had in the past better endings. But as far as Laurie Strode, she, after 44 long years, deserved this ending. And as a Laurie Strode story, this was a beautiful conclusion that I really felt this journey come to an end. There was closure. There was elements that harken back to the original John Carpenter film. It wasn't just about like slashing people up. No, there was more. It was more character driven. It was a statement about our culture and society and how we treat victims. There was a lot of elements here that I liked. Do we need the addition of Corey? No, not really, but I respect this for being kind of its own thing. It's a departure. Much like other trilogies, this third entry isn't as good as the previous two, but I have to say, it wasn't the worst of the Halloween franchise. It was merely okay. And as a conclusion, in this timeline, it was serviceable. Andy Matichak did a wonderful job as Allison in this trilogy. I liked her in this film. They did kind of dumb down her character slightly. And Jamie Lee Curtis really brings it home as Laurie, finally giving her a moment to get past her grief, trying to move forward and have a life. But as always, evil never dies. It changes shape, and we get to see that. I like the nods to Season of the Witch and to the original film. In many ways, I felt like the story made more sense when Michael was supernatural and when they were brother and sister. I don't know if this trilogy was really worth retconning the previous timeline. I felt like it was more epic, but like I said in my review of Ends, the original timeline felt like the legend. This felt like the reality of what happened, you know? And the final 20 minutes were so intense that I love this film. You know, it's not the best, no, but it was a satisfying conclusion, and Laurie got to go into the sunset. I loved it. I mean, what more do you want? Oh, Michael got grinded up. Good. It's called Halloween Ends. That bastard needed to die. There needed to be some finality in a movie called Halloween Ends. Was it the way that you wanted to go down? No. Was it as epic and action-packed as Halloween H20 or even Halloween 4? No. But for what it was, I liked it. It was more grounded like the 2018 film. However, I think they should have made up their mind of whether or not they wanted to make Michael supernatural. The only part that kind of bothered me was Corey taking his mask so easily. It's like, yeah, Corey's his new guy. I'm like, Michael would have fucked him up in the previous films. Overall, besides a twist, it had vibes of The Lost Boys mixed in with Season of the Witch and the original Halloween film. And I have to say I like this trilogy. We now have 2 Laurie Strode trilogies, and yeah. What can I say? I mean, I had a smile on my face when Don't Fear the Reaper by Blue Oyster Cult started playing in the credits. After that, number 6 is Halloween Kills. This was another film that was very polarizing for people, very divisive in the Halloween fandom and just fandom in general. I actually like this film. It's brutal. It harkens back to almost like the Rob Zombie Halloweens. In many ways, this is the Empire Strikes Back of Halloween films with this dark ending with Karen's death. And I have to say, I really enjoyed this. It was a mixture of like Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 with the original Halloween 2. But not only that, it's a better society of like civil rights uprisings and stuff, Black Lives Matters. It's like, it's a matter of like what happens when you have to stop this injustice, this evil from happening. But at the same time, is there a better way to do it? What happens when it gets out of control, when mob culture starts taking over, people lose sight of what they're doing? How does fear infect a society and a community of people? And that's one thing that they explore here with the town of Haddonfield and Halloween Kills, is the idea and fear of Michael Myers and what it does to its civilians, while it also fuels him as a killer, as this shape, as this evil entity. Laurie is out of commission. A lot of people complained about that, but go back and watch Halloween 2. It's not like she wasn't in the hospital for the whole movie in that one as well. Allison and Karen get a lot more to do. We now have Anthony Michael Hall as Tommy Doyle. We get to see other familiar faces from the past. The opening flashback sequence, I think, should have been in 2018. I love it. Down to a T. It felt like the 70s. How they had practical makeup on the actor who played Loomis. Oh my God. This was just an awesome movie. And yeah, it was building up to an epic conclusion. Do we get the epic conclusion to it? Not quite. But I like this film. It's a good encore to Halloween 2018. In many ways, I feel like the first 2 films of this trilogy were one movie and that they forced it to be a trilogy. Something about it. The execution was off. I don't know if it was like post-COVID world and this is shot like pre-COVID. I don't know. But something about this and the 2018 film I thought were done better than Halloween Ends, which is why I have this higher up on the list. Even though I love all 3 films, Halloween Kills definitely needs more love. It was not nearly as bad as what people say. I mean, you're getting a good old-fashioned slasher flick. After that, number 5 is Halloween 2. This is where it really should have ended. I mean, Halloween did not need a sequel. The only thing I have against this is I don't like the new Michael and the way he acts and walks compared to Nick Castle. That being said, I like the score. That opening is haunting. The skull coming out of the pumpkin is iconic. They are a bit gratuitous on the content. It feels more Friday the 13th and less Alfred Hitchcock like the original Carpenter film. But I love how it continues straight after the original film. You can watch them in a double feature and feel like one long movie. The revelation of Michael and Laurie being brother and sister, Loomis and her trying to stop Michael, to that final showdown and Mr. Sandman playing. Overall, this was a perfect sequel and needs more love. I'm kind of still a little miffed that this was retconned because this is an excellent film and probably the best, one of the best with H20, best Halloween sequels. After that, at number 4 is Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. I absolutely love this film when I first saw it. I saw it on AMC and then later on rented it. Danielle Harris as Jamie, wonderful. The actress who plays her sister, wonderful. Michael Myers' mask does look a little bit kind of funky, but it's great that they did the whole like 10-year anniversary thing, kind of like H20 or H40 and with Halloween 2018. But Michael Myers returning. Dr. Loomis surviving that accident, getting burned up. He has burns. This actually did a serviceable job in continuing the story after Halloween 2. We find out that Laurie died in a car accident. She could have faked it if you count H20 in the canon. This put a breath of fresh air into the franchise. It was done so well, and I think these films are better when they're not rushed, when they're not like after a year, when there's some time between the films. I think that they're better, they're stronger for it. And who could forget, after the whole town going against Michael, you think he's dead, who could forget that shocking ending that harkened back to the opening of the original Halloween, but this time with Jamie and Loomis going, no, no! It just, that ending is so terrifying, so haunting, that it just is disturbing. It stays with you. I still think about that ending. This is one of the best Halloween films ever made. After that, at number 3 is Halloween 2018. Halloween 2018 was a very cool requel. You know, I love the original timeline. I kind of had mixed feelings on them retconning it, but let's face it, some of the sequels were crap, and Resurrection kind of ruined the chances of continuing H20. Too bad they did not count Halloween 2 like H20 did. That being said, Laurie is Sarah Connor in this film. Judy Greer is amazing as Karen. Who could forget Allison? The way Michael Myers walks in this, the way it's filmed is done so much better than its sequels. This really feels like the Carpenter film. It like honestly feels like a John Carpenter movie. I love how they continue it. The only thing I really do not like in this film is a Dr. Sartain twist, but I loved seeing Michael stomp his head in. That was great. The music, you know, the Shape hunts Allison, or like the Shape returns, Michael kills. Halloween Triumphant is a wonderful theme that I wish they used again, either in the ending of another film or the beginning of like the final film with like the electric guitar into the Halloween theme. But Laurie is dealing with grief. We get to see her create a prison for herself while Michael was in a prison in the mental asylum for 40 years. And then her greatest fear come true with Michael Myers returning. And of course they're forced to fight. And I like the final fight a lot. This actually could have been the ending. This was a better ending, I think, than ends. But was it as epic as Halloween H20? No, I actually think that Halloween H20 is still a stronger epic conclusion for a final fight, but I love the callbacks. I love the reversal of Laurie and Michael and what she does, and it's almost like the opposite of the 78 film. Overall, like the original Halloween, this film did not need a sequel. And despite some questionable choices and performances, I loved it. And who could forget Will Patton? Will Patton is great in all three of these films. I like his role. And yeah. You knew it was going to be something special when Jamie Lee Curtis and John Carpenter came back to the franchise, especially after how they were treated or what happened with them in the previous films. So I respect it for setting a new timeline, and overall, it's not a bad follow-up after the first Halloween, even though I wish they counted Halloween 2. And Laurie has a family. Oh, I'm sorry, not to treat Josh Hartnett like Jamie. Yeah. After that, at number 2 is Halloween H20. Halloween 20 years later is, in many ways, kind of like a Scream film. It's like Diet Coke to Coke of Halloween. It's like the Diet Coke of Halloween. But I love it. It's a love letter and conclusion to the franchise at that point. Even though 4, 5, and 6 are not in canon, you could easily count them with some references in Dr. Loomis's office, but the score at the beginning sounds epic. We get a young Joseph Gordon-Levitt. We just see the nurse again, who is also in Kills. But Laurie faked her death and is now in hiding. She's now like the, I guess, principal or like head of this private school. Josh Hartnett in one of his first roles as her son. Alan Arkin, who was in Chicago Hope at the time. You have LL Cool J. And even Janet Leigh, Jamie Lee Curtis' mother, has a cameo. I love the Psycho reference, and then her telling Laurie, everyone's entitled to one good scare for Halloween. But this film, while it's not too complicated, it's very simple. It's really the build up to the epic showdown. And I have to say, there's something with actresses and directors or just people involved with movies coming back for a 7th installment after many crappy sequels. This was like the new nightmare of the Halloween franchise in many ways. Like Heather Langenkamp and Wes Craven came back for New Nightmare for the 7th installment. This is Jamie Lee Curtis coming back. Kevin Williamson made a great script. I'm not going to count that paramedic ending. I love the way this ends. The showdown, Stephen Miner's direction in this. You know, he did a Friday the 13th film, so you definitely get elements there. The callback and reversals to the original film, but also just the intensity of it. I love it where she traps them into the school, lets the kids go, call the neighbors, call the police, and she just yells, "Michael!" And you just hear the music. That whole showdown all the way to the paramedic ambulance chase, the car accident, to her seeing Michael for a moment. They're almost going to touch hands, brother and sister, and then she just cuts his head off, decapitates him, breathes heavy, and it's almost like reminiscent of the original ending. This, to me, in the original timeline, and maybe even the franchise, is where Halloween ends for me. I love this ending. And yeah, it's not the best, and yeah, Michael Myers' mask looks silly. I wish somebody would deep fake the 2018 mask or something, or Halloween 6. But this is an awesome ending that needs more love, and I think this is a franchise where producers just got too greedy, and this film had many great endings and many final battles, and would have been remembered and seen more revered even if the producers weren't greedy, if they just want to keep churning Michael out and making money. Like, you're ruining a great thing already. Quit making more movies. Just end it. You know? And that's how I feel with this. After that, at number 1, Halloween. Is there any doubt that 1978 is still the best one? This film did not need a sequel. John Carpenter created the epitome of a slasher film. You had Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you had like Psycho with Alfred Hitchcock, you had Peeping Tom, but this created the new wave that opened the gates for Friday the 13th, Prom Night, My Bloody Valentine, Nightmare on Elm Street. All these films in the late 70s and 80s, Halloween helped usher a new wave. And it wasn't as gratuitous as those other movies either. This is shot more like an Alfred Hitchcock movie. There's gore, but it's not as gory as people think, you know. I love Nick Castle as Michael Myers. He does a great job. John Carpenter. Jamie Lee Curtis in her first film as Laurie. I mean, the first film for the final girl. Like, the final girl. She's up there with Sarah Connor, Ellen Ripley, Nancy Thompson. One of the best female heroines in cinema. And of course, Loomis is a connection to Psycho, which then this film also inspired Scream. I mean, it makes you wonder. So many connections in the horror world, but this is just great. A story about the boogeyman. That opening POV shot with a Steadicam. The use of Steadicam in this film is brilliant, but like that opening, oh my God, talk about like a shocking opening when you think it's a man and it's actually Michael as a child. Like, that guy was just evil. And this is what happens when evil returns home. And yeah, I could go on talking about Halloween, but that first one is a classic, and it still holds up, even after 44 years. That's my quick personal ranking of my least to most favorite Halloween films. Again, let me know your least to most favorite down in the comments below. Let's be respectful to other people. There's been a lot of toxicity in the comments to other people. Seriously, be respectful to other people's opinions. It's okay for people to have different opinions. We're not the Borg. We're individuals with different opinions. But be respectful down in the comments. And I hope everyone has a safe and happy Halloween. Till next time, everyone, feel free to subscribe and check out these other videos for more content.